Welcome to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. When we finished reading last time, they had just made that little piece of gum that looked like a piece of cardboard, remember? And Violet Beauregard had noticed that it was gum and she was shrieking and screaming about it. And that's where we're going to start up today. Chapter 21. Goodbye, Violet. This gum, Mr. Wonka went on, is my latest, my greatest, my most fascinating invention. It's a chewing gum meal. It's It's hmm, it, that little strip of gum lying there is a whole three-course dinner all by itself. What sort of nonsense is this? Said one of the fathers. My dear sir, cried Mr. Wonka, when I start selling this gum in the shops, it will change everything. It will be the end of all kitchens and cooking. There will be no more marketing to do. He means shopping. No more buying of meat and groceries. No more knives and forks at mealtime. No plates. No cleaning up. No garbage. No mess. Just one little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum. And that's all you'll ever need at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This piece of gum I've just made happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie. But you can have almost anything you want in it. What do you mean it's tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie? Said Violet Beauregard. If you were to start chewing it, said Mr. Wonka, then that's exactly what you would get. It's amazing. You can actually feel the food going down your throat and into your tummy, and it tastes perfectly, and it fills you up, satisfies you. It's amazing. That's utterly impossible, said Veruca Salt. Just so long as it's gum, shouted Violet Beauregard. Just so long as it's a piece of gum and I can chew on it, then that's for me. And quickly she took her own uh, world record piece of chewing gum out of her mouth and stuck it behind her left ear. Come on, Mr. Wonka, she said. Hand over the magic gum of yours, and we'll see if this thing works. Now, Violet, Mrs. Beauregard said, don't do anything silly, Violet. I want the gum, said Violet. What's so silly? I would rather that you didn't take it, Mr. Wonka said gently. You see, I haven't got it quite right yet. There are still one or two things. Oh, what the heck with that, said Violet, and suddenly, before Mr. Wonka could stop her, she shot out her fat little hand and grabbed the stick of gum out of the drawer and popped it into her mouth. At once, her huge, well-trained jaws started chewing away like a pair of tongs. Don't, said Mr. Wonka. Fabulous, shouted Violet. It's tomato soup. It's hot and creamy and delicious. Mm, I can feel it running down my throat. Stop, said Mr. Wonka. The gum isn't ready yet. It's not right. Of course it's right, said Violet. It's working beautifully. Mm. Oh, what lovely soup this is. Spit it out, said Mr. Wonka. Oh, it's changing, said Violet, chewing and grinning at the same time. Mm, the second course is coming up. Mm, oh, roast beef. Mm, it's tender and juicy. Oh, boy, what a flavor that is. And the baked potato is marvelous, too. Yeah, it's got a crispy skin and it's all filled with butter inside. But how interesting, Violet, said Mrs. Beauregard. You are such a clever girl. Is she a clever girl? Keep chewing, kiddo, said Mr. Beauregard. Keep right on chewing, baby. This is a great day for the Beauregards. Our little girl is the first person in the world to have a chewing gum meal. Everybody was watching Violet Beauregard as she stood there chewing this extraordinary gum. Little Charlie Bucket was staring at her absolutely spellbound, watching her huge rubbery lips, that doesn't sound attractive, as they pressed and unpressed the chewing, and Grandpa Joe stood beside him, gaping at the girl. Remember gaping? Mr. Wonka was wringing his hands and saying, "No, no, 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 no. It's not ready for eating. It really isn't right. You mustn't do it." Mmm, mmm, blueberry pie and cream, shouted Violet. "Here it comes. Oh my, it's perfect. Mmm, it's beautiful. It's exactly as though I'm swallowing it. Mmm, it's as though I'm chewing and swallowing great big spoonfuls mmm, of the most amazing blueberry pie in the world." "Good heavens, girl!" shrieked Mrs. Beauregard suddenly. "What's happening to your nose?" "Oh, be quiet, Mother. Let me finish," said Violet. "It's turning blue," said Mrs. Beauregard. "Your nose is turning blue like a blueberry." "Your mother is right," shouted Mr. Beauregard. "Your whole nose has gone purple." "What do you mean?" said Violet, still chewing. "Your cheeks!" screamed Mrs. Beauregard. "They're turning blue as well. So's your chin. Your whole face is turning blue." "Spit out that gum at once," ordered Mr. Beauregard. "Mercy, save us!" yelled Mrs. Beauregard. "The girl is going blue and purple all over. Even her hair is changing color. Violet, you're turning violet. Violet, what is happening to you?" "I told you I hadn't got it quite right," sighed Mr. Wonka, shaking his head sadly. "I'll say you haven't," said Mrs. Beauregard. "Just look at the girl now." Everybody was staring at Violet. What a terrible, peculiar sight she was. Her face and hands and legs and neck, in fact, all the skin over her whole body, as well as her great big mop of curly hair, had all turned a brilliant purplish blue, the same color as blueberry juice. "It always goes wrong when we come to the dessert," said Mr. Wonka. "It's the blueberry pie that does it, but I'll get it right one of these days. You just wait and see." "Violet!" screamed Mrs. Beauregard. "You're swelling up." "I feel sick," Violet said. "You're swelling up!" screamed Mrs. Beauregard again. "I feel most peculiar," said Violet. I have 2 pages stuck together. Sorry. There we go. "I'm not surprised," said Mr. Beauregard. "Good heavens, girl!" screeched Mrs. Beauregard. "You're blowing up like a balloon." "Like a blueberry," said Mr. Wonka. "Call the doctor!" shouted Mr. Beauregard. "Prick her with a pin," said one of the other fathers. "Save her!" cried Mrs. Beauregard, wringing her hands. But there was no saving her now. Her body was swelling up and changing shape at such a rate that within a minute it had already turned into nothing less than an enormous round blue ball. A gigantic blueberry, in fact. And all that remained of Violet Beauregard herself was a tiny pair of legs and a tiny pair of arms sticking out of the great round fruit and a little head on top. I'll show you a picture. This is not the very end. This is while she was still turning into a blueberry. Wouldn't it be great if it were a color picture and we could see her all blue? "It always happens like that," said Mr. Wonka. "I've tried it 20 times in the testing room on 20 different Oompa Loompas, and every one of them finished up as a blueberry. It's most annoying. I just can't understand it." "But I don't want a blueberry for a daughter," yelled Mrs. Beauregard. "Put her back to what she was this instant." Mr. Wonka clicked his fingers, and 10 Oompa Loompas immediately appeared at his side. "Roll Miss Beauregard into the boat," he said to them, "and then take her along to the juicing room at once." "The juicing room!" cried Mrs. Beauregard. "What are they going to do in the juicing room?" "Squeeze her," said Mr. Wonka. "We have to squeeze all the juice out of her immediately. After that, we'll just have to see how she comes out. But don't worry, my dear Mrs. Beauregard. We'll get her repaired if it's the last thing we do. I'm so sorry about it all. I really am." Already, the 10 Oompa Loompas were rolling the enormous blueberry across the floor of the inventing room towards the door that led to the chocolate river where the boat was waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Beauregard hurried after them. The rest of the party, including little Charlie Bucket and Grandpa Joe, stood absolutely still and watched them go. "Listen," whispered Charlie. "Listen, Grandpa. The Oompa Loompas in the boat outside. They're starting to sing a song." The voices, 100 of them singing together, came loud and clear into the room, and this is what they said. "Dear friends, we surely all agree there's almost nothing worse to see than some repulsive little bum who's always chewing gum. It's very near as bad as those who sit around and pick the nose. So please believe us when we say that chewing gum will never pay. This sticky habit's bound to send the chewer to a sticky end. Did any of you ever know a person called Miss Bigelow? This dreadful woman saw no wrong in chewing all day long. She chewed while bathing in the tub. She chewed while dancing at her club. She chewed in church and on the bus. It really was quite ludicrous. And when she couldn't find her gum, she'd chew up the linoleum. That means like the kitchen floor. Or anything that happened near, a pair of boots, the postman's ear, or other people's underclothes. And once she chewed her boyfriend's nose, she went on chewing till at last her chewing muscles grew so vast that from her face a giant chin stuck out like a violin. For years and years she chewed away, consuming 50 packs of gum a day. Wow. Until one summer eve, alas, a horrid business came to pass. Miss Bigelow went to bed late. For half an hour she lay and read, chewing and chewing all the while like some great clockwork crocodile. At last she put her gum away under a special little tray and settled back down and went to sleep. She managed this by counting sheep. But now, how strange! Although she slept, those massive jaws of hers still kept on chewing and chewing through the night, even with nothing there to bite. They were, you see, in such a groove, they positively had to move. And very grim it was to hear, in pitchness dark, loud and clear, this sleeping woman's great big trap opening and shutting. Snap, snap, snap. Faster and faster. Chomp, chomp, chomp. The noise went on. It wouldn't stop until at last her jaws decide to pause and open extra wide. And with the most tremendous chew, they bit the lady's tongue in two. Thereafter, just from chewing gum, Miss Bigelow was always dumb. That means she couldn't talk. She didn't have a tongue. She spent her life shut up in some disgusting sanatorium, and that is why we try so hard to save Miss Violet Beauregard from suffering an equal fate. She's still quite young, it's not too late, provided she survives the cure. We hope she does. We can't be sure. And the cure was the juicing room. This is her being rolled to the juicing room. You can see her little legs here, and I think you can see her little face down here, and all the Oompa Loompas rolling her. And that is the end of chapter 21. See you next time.